قرنا ذهب الظمأ وابتلت العروق وثبت الأجر إن شاء الله. Africell ñoo leen doon may seen programme dog bi di leen ñaanal koor gu Yàlla nangu.
Some do not even have, as I said, records to even indicate how much money was being paid to the teachers. So you don't even talk about tax, you don't even talk about gratuity issues and stuff like that. And we have also seen situations where it is only the head who is a retired educationist and the rest are all either grade 9 leavers or unqualified teachers, so to speak. So in-service training, is a no-go area. Virtually, they are all sentenced to their last academic standing. In most cases, secondary, fourth, or grade 9 certificate. So actually, for the 66 schools, not all of them, but in most of those schools within the cohort, we've seen very appalling working conditions of teachers.
Thank you very much, Mr. So, on teacher welfare there. Mr. Cisse, what do you think were some of the major reasons for the rapid expansion of some of these private schools?
Thank you, Mr. Ba, once again. The reasons were numerous, but the most important thing one could cite it is a lucrative business, as some would take it. You open a school expecting an income. And the other reason can be they are violating the registration process. That is, like the DP has said, using one registration for different levels. That is, you are given an approval for ECD, you take it to LBS and upper basic. Sometimes forgery of the certificates. Some of them will be given a certificate and they will forge it to give to their colleagues so that they can also operate their own schools. The other factor can be the demand for nursery education, because we realize that the urban area is highly populated, and in most instances schools are operated in different communities, and virtually children around that community will be enrolled. Then that's another factor. And the other one can be which is the delay in the registration process, because they will apply. It has to go through process, that is receiving of the application. A team will be prepared to go and assess the school. But most of them will not wait for those processes to be completed. Instead, they will go ahead and start operation. Then those are some of the reasons that led to the rapid expansion. And also the monitoring aspect, that the sector was not able to have the required number or the constant monitoring to establish which schools are operating and also where, because some of the areas they are located in the interior of some of the communities. That was also another factor. Yes, thank you.
So you want to chip in something on the rapid expansion of private schools?
Exactly, Samuel. The issue of laxity in monitoring, the Ministry of Basic Education has to take responsibility, because that's their primary function. They're expected to ensure that the right things and tools and all that matters are looked at. But during this process, if it has been realized that the delay in the process is as a matter for the ministry is responsible, the task force recommends for that process to be expedited. So that's one of the good sides of the exercise, where the task force has realized that government, or precisely MOPSI, is responsible for whatever issues or matters that we came across. It is recommended that that process is expedited, and those guys have dealt with accordingly. With regards to the issue of the demand for higher education, you see, everybody is concerned. This is everybody's business. If you have a group of grade 9 leavers developing the background of those small and tender kids between the ages of 3 and 6, and it becomes a vicious cycle. When they get to the lower basic school, it will take the teachers for the rest of grade 1 and 2 to rectify some of those mistakes and correct the errors, the damages they would have incurred at the lower basic school. And by the time when they graduate into the senior secondary level, we end up having candidates of circumstances. And we are concerned as a union, because we don't want people to come to take teaching as a career just because they don't have any other job to do. We want people with their ones and their twos and their threes to take up teaching as a career. So this is everybody's business. It's not deliberate. Actually, if you manage to fulfill some of those requirements, certainly there's nothing stopping you from legally operating the school, as it were.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sow, for at least elaborating on the expansion of some of the private schools. Mr. Cisaho, what are some of the conditions or factors considered for some of the schools to be closed?
Thank you very much. There are a lot of factors, but some are more serious than others. In some cases, we look at combination of factors to determine which schools should be closed. But some of the factors that we don't compromise to start with is the use of land ownership. You see, a school cannot be, it's not an institution which has a purpose of existing for just a short period. We like every proprietor who has a school to be able to prove to us that this land either belongs to him or at least to show us a tenancy agreement for a period of time, at least 10 years. Because we don't want a situation whereby somebody will just come and say, okay, this land belongs to me, and then the school has to close. So that's a very important factor that we consider. Another very important factor is the kind of building that house this school. We would not compromise on safe structures. And we also would not want to see kids going to school using unfinished buildings. We don't also want to see kids going to schools where there is no toilet facility, there is no water facility. These are some of the conditions we look into, and we found out that some schools have combination of these problems, some have few of them, and some have other problems like poor management. But if you have a problem that is not as serious as the ones I just said, usually we give you a conditional approval, which we did not publish in the papers, where we ask you to improve on that for a period of time to change your conditional approval to a permanent approval. Condition of classroom as well, size of the classroom, because we've seen some schools where you get like a small tiny room and packed with let's say 40, 50 kids. You had some even cannot even have a place to sit down. So that also is not acceptable because in case, as you know, in case of outbreak of some health problem, it could lead to some disaster. So virtually those are some of the reasons why we close some of the schools.
Yeah, just to add on to that, if you like it, technically speaking, they are just shut down. When that exercise was conducted and the list was reviewed, the schools, as per their conditions, were categorized into three. One, those who at least fulfill the minimum requirements, and they were taken. Others, yes, there are certain issues and concerns, but they were not as serious as the cases that he cited. Those guys are to be given provisional approval. But those that we're talking about, the 66, as soon as we are able to upgrade and fulfill some of the requirements, even tomorrow, you'll be allowed to. And one of the findings was that you will come across a school that does not have a tenancy agreement. In fact, CSS should have even mentioned this, where there is this change of location. The change of location in most of those schools is due to the fact that there was no tenancy agreement between you and the landlord, and as a result, the landlord, as soon as he or she needs his or her compound, the guy would ask you out, and therefore you move out. And during this trek, we have seen one or two instances where, I mean my group, there were about 4 or 5 different groups within the committee, where we had to trace schools from one ward to another because they've been changing location. Apparently due to the simple reason that there was no legal formal agreement between them and their landlords, and as soon as they need their compounds, they just ask them out and they start moving to another self-contained building to establish another institution.
Thank you very much. Mr. Sow, back to you again, but what do you think teachers or schools could do in the wake of the decision for some of these schools to be closed?
Yeah, they have the right to present in their petitions to the ministry,